Good day to you, partner. I'm Guy, and I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken cave.
Hey guys, Wheat Solo here, aka the Skeleton King. So we are continuing my Pure Fizz Summoner deep dive, but we are no longer doing Brand, we are now doing Eternity. And as you can see, it is really frustrating. Quick side note, the Doom Knights suffering from a lack of any sort of activation has to do with like some idle issue. It is a known bug and it is fixed. By the way, I don't think it makes this map, I guess it might make it easier. It doesn't make it faster. And right there was the point where I almost wanted to stop doing this, because I did test Eternity-based Fizz Summoner builds, not Pure Fizz. I was doing like a hybrid with mages, I think, at that point, maybe even archers too. The problem with having 16 physical revives, and by the way, in that video I was using Moonlords, or I didn't even make a video because it was so terrible. The problem with having so many physical revives is that there's just not enough space for them to attack things. Now, you might be asking, well, could you cut out the warriors? And it's actually funny. I think if I cut out warriors, it probably would make the build faster. Not that warriors are bad, but if they like weren't there, and yes, I would lose some damage on archers because they share a synergy now. 6% ED, which isn't a big deal. It's 120%, and like, well, yeah, that's a lot of damage, but I could put more points in the amplified damage or curse mastery and support my revives that way. In fact, at that point, if I felt like curses wouldn't help me anymore, I could even put some points in the desecrate. Like if I really wanted to force the issue on physical summons. You might ask, well, could you go into golem mastery at that point? And it's like, yeah, but again, I want to avoid the amount of summons in melee range. And sure, 5 clay golems, or sorry, 4 clay golems, because I have an iron golem, would help the issue a bit. I don't know if it would be enough, but that definitely would be an option for anybody who's like super insistent about running Eternity physical revives. Now the damage is there. I completely destroyed the map mini-boss, as you can see. The speed is actually more similar than I thought it would be to the archer-based variant. But one of the issues is, besides the melee range, is I don't think the boss speed was much faster, if at all. And that's probably because having 6 additional physical revives, as good as they are, it's probably about as good as having 6 additional archers. The difference is the archers also do ranged damage and don't need to be in melee range to be active. Now, with my shield, I did put on Kalan's, and that's because I wanted something, you know, faster, and that's obviously going to increase clear speed more than Exile. Is Exile still a really good option? You know, I've talked about how much I value defense as it relates to offense, because if I'm not getting hit, as you can see, there's many points in these builds recently where my gear is not quite optimal and I'm being put into hit recovery. And yes, those issues have dropped since I did improve my gear a bit from the first video. It's still there. And would Exile, especially with its high defense rolls and then Defiance, help? Oh, it would help. It would help a lot. But I think having Collins, especially with melee summons, and basically adds another offensive aura. I talked about how one of the cool things with physical revives now is you get access to another offensive aura. And basically, like, Vigor is another offensive aura we don't get with the Brand build. Now, the map is going pretty well. This map, I would say, is easier than the other map. The poison damage is super annoying. I'm actually pretty surprised I didn't die. I was super close to dying there. If that archer shot had hit me from the skeleton archer, I might have died. They actually do juicy damage. And I really didn't enjoy playing this, but I will be honest, the speed was better than I thought. It is clearly better than it was before, even though they're like, I have just too many summons and they're not accomplishing enough. Just the fact that these, you know, blunderbores have Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike, and Splash with a CC attack, like, it's pretty good. So what I want to do moving forward is I want to take this same build. I'm not going to change anything. Oh, by the way, the map is a little easier. Not much, but is a little easier than the brand build, and my gear is slightly better. I don't mean the Kalans. I mean the fact that I did do at least one ring swap. By the way, I don't know how I'm just getting blasted by these archers so often in this map. It was so frustrating, and they canceled so many of my casts, like, all map long. But I did have a 10 FCR ring swap, which helped me hit one higher break point. And so actually, my gear is overall a bit better, and the map is overall a bit easier. It took 30 seconds slower. I could have played both builds faster, so let's just say they're both played about the same optimally-ness. Maybe I was disengaged in this map, so you could put that as a criticism, fair. But I am more comfortable overall with my keybinds in beta, and so, you know, point counterpoint. Overall, I would say that the Eternity version is probably going to be about a minute slower than the brand version, and on a 7-minute map, that is a 1 divided by 7, so that's like a 15% reduction in speed. But still, like Summoner, Necro Summoner gets better at mapping like every single season, and that's cool. Again, do you overvalue the safety of it? I mean, if you're playing a Summoner fast, I don't think it's as safe as a lot of people seem to like to believe it is. Again, there's ways to be safer with better gear. For instance, you know, instead of Enigma, I could run Steel Carapace, just have less Blood Warp, which is annoying in itself. But, like, with optimal gear, you basically won't be able to die, especially if you run Dual Curse. But then when you talk about optimal gear, a lot of classes basically can't die. And then point counterpoint again, you might randomly die because an enemy gets, you know, base monster crit and then has extra strong on it and a concentration aura. And sorry, you just lost 3,000 life in one attack basically. The final thing is I'm not saying that the pure physical is going to be optimal. The only reason I'm focusing on the pure physical so much is because it received significant changes. It is super popular amongst new players, and I don't know why, but it just is. And so I really wanted to look at how it looks now with basically just the buff. Yes, they did tone down certain auras, but I think having critical strike and less ED, there's like no argument. We got way better for physical summons. I was actually really impressed with the brand build, and to be frank, the Eternity build also outperformed my expectations, so there's that, please. Eternity is a great rune word, and you don't need to run pure Fizz the entire game. Moving forward, I do want to look at summons-ons. I'm also going to redo the Eternity version, but I'm going to do it with even better gear. I'm just going to stop trying to worry about the gear restraints anymore. I can always redo brand if I feel like I want to showcase it again with better gear. And what I'm going to focus on, actually, this is exciting, I'm going to do this same build with better gear, and then I'm going to do it in Ashen Plains non-fort. And then that open space with a lot of mobs might allow my, you know, 16 revives and then my 8 warriors to actually get in the melee range and accomplish something useful. I am showing the gear because it is marginally different, and people always seem to complain about that when I don't show the gear. I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but whatever. And at the end, I am going to showcase this little cute little thing. If you had a +3 Ondarials or a +2 Ondarials and an Arachnid Mesh, and you give them the CTA buff, you do get that level 18, I'm sorry, the level 22 Blessed Aim Aura, and then your Deadly Strike goes from 15 to 16. Is that worth it? Yeah, a +3 Andes on him, and then CTA, worth. Is the Arachnid Mesh worth it? Probably not. Probably a Nos Coil is better. By the way, Dracula's Glove has been nerfed, no more IAS, so it's not that great. And Tyrael's Might no longer gets +1. The last thing I want to talk about is the reason Necromancers are such good mapping summoner builds, while we may not be the best budget, you know, Uber Clearers or Naked Hell Farmers anymore, is because of our access to quality range minions or even Fire Golems with their 10-yard splash, which is so useful. So I'm not trying to say this is optimal, but is this now a viable option? Yes. Brand might be really good, not the best, but really good, and even Eternity seems pretty good too. Skeleton King out, guys. GG.
Come and play with us.